The last episode was so jam-packed, we decided to do a second part and continue where we left off. So what is the nature of the virus?
We don't know exactly what the infectiousness, for lack of a better term, it has. The only way you could do that is once we're done with it, we can look backwards and kind of see all the numbers and all the data and make conclusions. But for right now, it seems like a respiratory virus. It might have some sensitivity to people's blood types, but that's still uncertain. And now there's some information from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, saying that it doesn't really get passed by surfaces. So wearing gloves and touching a doorknob that somebody else touched, that might actually be what's going on. It actually might be person to person.
How did you handle solitude?
Well, I'm not used to be alone. I'm not used to be at home, so it was difficult. It was sadness at the beginning. Was hard, and then I learned to talk with myself. No, the time passed quick. It was not that bad.
I grew up also in a house that I was spending a lot of hours by myself, so I started loving myself when I was a kid and enjoying spending time with myself.
I definitely need space for myself. I like my alone time, but I don't need to be alone for 2 events, you know.
So in general, I am the person who loves to be alone. For me, this does not mean that I'm sad during the time. I am so productive when I'm alone. I feel like I have time to, focus on my goals.
I had a day when I cried because it was like too much already for me, like it all piled up, all the emotions.
The hours that I need to be by myself, I was enjoying it. It was not something I was getting bored. And I think that kind of experience when I was a kid helped me later on and in the past months to survive, let's say, unquote, the situation.
But definitely, it wasn't easy. Like, I'm not gonna say it was piece of cake, like 2.5 months. No, like I had definitely low moments.
I tend to be a moody person, so I need to really have my space. I don't like when people are in my area, I just need to have my space and time. But in general, I have to say that this was the time when I realized that minimal contact with my friends, it's very important.
Was it difficult to not be with your family?
I struggled with that, but my mum really struggled with that.
I think it was just harder to know that I'm not going to see my mom, particularly. I just knew that also for her it's very difficult. So I think that was the most difficult part of this whole thing, yeah.
My brother gave birth to my nephew, but I haven't been able to see my nephew. I was supposed to go in March. I didn't want to give or expose the newborn to me because I see COVID patients in my practice. So that was kind of hard.
Who is most susceptible to COVID?
We think that people with comorbidities, so people with other illnesses, diabetes, elderly patients, people with compromised immune systems, they're more susceptible, one, to the virus, and then more susceptible to some of the extreme reactions of the body to the virus. But there are some rare cases where young people and fit people get really, really sick, but that's more of the exception than the norm.
How did you handle the threat of the virus?
So I think there is some element of fear involved, and I think that was partly intentional. For me, I wasn't at all worried. I had to actively remind myself that this was something that was happening and to abide by the rules because it wasn't inbuilt in me to do that.
First of all, I was very afraid to get sick myself. And then I was also very afraid to get my family sick that I was staying with.
From the start, I thought that this coronavirus was a little bit overestimated, and it happened to be.
I've heard of people's stories who have gotten sick, and some of them have just not ended well, or some of them have just gone through such a hard time. And that's not something I personally want for myself.
I find it very hard to feel annoyed, frustrated by people not abiding by the rules, because not abiding by the rules would mean seeing their grandparents or kissing their boyfriend or hugging their mum. I couldn't muster too much righteous anger about that, really.
I've been trying so hard to make sure that I'm COVID cautious. So wearing a mask every time I go out, washing my hands constantly, being 6 feet apart.
Because it's a new life, no? We must stay conscious about that because it's a real thing that is new for the whole planet.
How well did the government respond to the virus?
So my country, they handle it pretty well because the government, they put a stay-at-home order like right in the beginning, and also they closed schools, so which affected actually my sister and my dad because they're teachers. Definitely, I think better than in the USA. I think they waited for too long, before shutting down everything and putting the stay-at-home orders.
The country is very weird. This country is weird.
One state has certain restrictions and different state has different one. It just kind of doesn't make a sense.
Some of the guidance in the UK was a bit weird. So you could go in the park and you could stay away 2 minutes away from strangers. But if your friend was there, you weren't allowed to be there, which is crazy.
Yeah, we were so serious before. During the pandemic, we were so serious. So my mom, she's almost 65. We were scared because many people around this age, they pass away. So we didn't want to lose her, so we protect her.
Did you or anyone in your circle get sick?
Yes, I got sick.
I already had COVID. I was completely asymptomatic.
My host mom got sick.
I was sick. One of my friends was sick. Felt like kind of fever, but was not high fever.
No, I don't know about anyone.
I work in a 15,000 people organization, and we only know about 2 cases, but they also recovered.
I wasn't very sick, but when I went to go do my antibodies test, I came out to be positive. Other than the loss of smell, the symptoms were so mild that I didn't really know if I was sick, to the point that my mom came to my house when I was in that state.
The rest of us were being very cautious and trying to take care of them, so we were lucky that nobody else got infected as well.
So COVID stays for quite a while in your bloodstream. So when my roommate had his test and I had my test, mine came negative and he came positive. So the doctor at the time, before the antibody test, he was 100% sure, like, you went through COVID because you have spent so much time in the same house. It's literally impossible. With someone that had symptoms, that is impossible that you hadn't contracted it.
We did a lot of cautious things. She stayed in her room for about 2-3 weeks almost, and after that she came back and she was fine.